With that, I present to you the resilient woman. At this point, if I may ask all of you to take a moment from what you are doing and gently lean yourself forward. And allow me to introduce the most beautiful phenomena which we call the feminine consciousness, which is the foundation of our lives. Depictions through art and culture allow us to study our prehistoric and ancient history. In 28,000 BC, this is how women were depicted. Today, we understand our culture through memes and YouTube shorts. I'm sorry, the slides are skipping. The intention of introducing the feminine consciousness or the feminine principles, and I will be swapping and swapping between these words, is to honor the role of the feminine both in men and women alike, and to pay attention to what our culture has done in terms of banishing, insulting, and relegating the women's psyche, the feminine conscious, out of our everyday lives, which forms the very backbone of how we have come into this world. Let me introduce the concept of the feminine to you with a story. There is a very successful lady. Her name is Maria. She is a successful lawyer. She is highly regarded by her colleagues. She wins every case she goes to. Her clients love her. She is interviewed by the local and international magazines. Her house, her tasteful clothes, and assortment of cars speak to her financial success. These days, she comes home to her second husband, and she cannot understand why she married him in the first place. Her elder children are in boarding school, and she often fails to make time to go meet them. Her youngest is being raised by a nanny. While Maria is calm, composed, professional, organized, and disciplined in her professional life, she is disorganized, unresponsive, unavailable emotionally, and chaotic in her personal life. Maria has a deep longing for tenderness and love, and she's sure that her third relationship will get her there. My dear friends, this is a witness of a woman who is in the grasp of masculine consciousness. Masculine consciousness emerged from feminine consciousness to give structure and form to chaos. Masculine consciousness is the fundamental principle of providing boundaries, providing safety and protection. Masculine consciousness is the business of identity pursuits, effectiveness, and achievement. That is the orientation that the masculine consciousness constantly takes us towards. The feminine consciousness, on the other hand, are about relatedness, receptivity, nurturing, warmth, and trust. In a more advanced place, in a more advanced form, there is a second form of feminine consciousness that a lot of you may not know about. I'm sorry, the slides are just not cooperating with me today. Now they have skipped. Nonetheless, maybe you can stay with me and we'll still get the essence of it. At a more advanced level, the feminine consciousness is about motion. It's about divinity. It is about change, growth, and transformation. Feminine consciousness allows us to prevail through difficult times and through uncertainty. It is the life force that keeps going even through the darkest of times. It is that gives us a sense of life. Feminine consciousness is the birthplace of the universe, which is 100% chaos. And to be able to move within that chaos, to be able to make sense within that chaos. So every single time there is any form of calamity, any form of disaster, any form of not knowingness, it becomes more and more important to begin to be able to break the boundaries, the knowns, the structures within our own consciousness, not on the outside but on the inside, to be able to begin to evolve. And this feminine consciousness is present in every single man and woman. Feminine consciousness is not femininity. Let me now maybe share a personal story. I was 10 years into my first career and I felt done. I felt so done. And I wondered if this is what life was about. Finishing college, graduating, getting married, having a child, and then pursuing a successful career, and then working hard, working very, very hard to maintain that. It didn't seem enough. And something was missing. Something was certainly missing. And I couldn't point my finger as to what was missing. And that's when I experienced my first meltdown, my first crisis of meaning. I could change my job, but that didn't seem the right solution. I wanted something more. I wanted something that allowed me an expression of who I wanted to become, not who I was. I went to a program in coaching. By the way, that was my third career. I made a middle transition in between where I moved from head of operations and HR into product management and user experience design. But even as I did that, something in me said that there is a joy in working with people. And it is not consulting that I'm searching for. It is not even about telling people what to do. So it wasn't counseling for me. I don't want to go tell people, do this and fix your relationships like this and be better. No, that wasn't it for me. But I didn't know what it was. I invested and went ahead with this program in coaching. And believe me, 7 years ago, also, it was frightfully expensive to a much younger me. And my family supported, of course. But they also asked all the difficult questions. So, how does this fit into your career? How's your career going to look like? Lovely. So what is the ROI of your investment? Do you have a strategic plan? Do you have a strategic partner? And most importantly, have you done your research? Half guilty, half panic-stricken, half in indignant part of me, I would be like, yes. But a part of me was like, I don't know. Just feels like the right thing to do, at least for me. And I don't have all the answers. And my strategic plan, even to me, it looked like the best MBA presentation I would have made. What I did know for certain was that I wanted to spend my lifetime finding my truth and helping others find theirs. It took tremendous amount of courage, took tremendous amount of personal conviction, self-belief, compassion to build my own business and having it brought so far. I don't really have too many clientele within my own country. But I have established business in UK, Europe, US, and Africa. And in each one of these countries, I have barely traveled a couple of times. But that's where my predominant clientele is. I listened. I listened to my feminine consciousness. I gave myself time, and I gave my business time. A time that a 2-year, 5-year plan did not fit in. So I kept it aside. I'm not saying it's not important. I'm saying I can't drive myself crazy because I drew up my plan from here. I can't do that. It's the best possible thing I could have done. Because venues opened up for me, partnerships opened up for me, people and their hearts opened up to me as my heart opened up to them. And that is the true essence of feminine consciousness. Receptivity and the ability to give, both together. At this point, I would like to say something about supporters and support. Support comes in various forms, but you may fail to identify them because they may not seem like words of encouragement or warmth that, what you're used to, what you traditionally understand. Support can be silent. Supporters can be silent. They may have a look of approval, maybe a look of disapproval, but they still hold the fort steady for you when you are spreading your wings. Supporters might also take the form of critiques. The ones who are asking you the difficult questions, and they may not have the maturity to say, I wanted to have a word with you. Do you think we can talk? It may not be so dignified. It may be a fight through which it is expressed. But that is still a supporter, whoever that is in your life. We build resentment towards them and we label them saying they are not supporting us, but they are. If they are with you today, they are your supporters. It's not that they don't believe in you or they don't believe in me. They are afraid. If they were not afraid, they would have done something else themselves. But they are afraid. And they are afraid for you too. They don't want to see you get hurt. And there's a constant voice that's always in the back of our mind. Why spoil a good thing that's going? How many of us have not thought that out to ourselves or not taken the step that we really wanted to? I have a good thing going and I recognize that. Why risk it? So what I want to bring to you today is that supporters need our warmth simply because our supporters find their nourishment from us. We live in an identity and achievement-oriented patriarchal society. Maybe that worked great for Napoleon and Hitler. But when your organization tells you We need transformation. We need growth. We need to change stuff around here. They are asking you, and not in so many words, but they're asking you to operate with the feminine consciousness. And mind you, I'm not saying that they have a cognizance that this is what they're asking you to do. They don't. Most people don't. But let me ask you, even if you know this today, tell me, for yourself, when we have banished, when we have relegated and suppressed the feminine consciousness within us from our psyche for so long, how do you bring it back? Problems cannot be solved at the level that they were created. I think that's a quote by Einstein. In other words, every single leader, each one of you present at the conference today, maybe your organizations have paid, maybe you have paid yourself, but the point is you have made it your freaking business to be here today. Each one of you is responding. You're responding to something within you which is stronger than you. And each one of you unconsciously is moving to the more mature, more evolved form of feminine consciousness. You're choosing to transform bit by bit, but you're getting there. The only answer, I think Douglas set the stage for this when he mentioned about inner journey and inner discoveries, is to take the journey inwards and heal the wounding to the feminine psyche. Because the only way to deal with problems, and now I will very deliberately swap the word problems with adversity and crisis, is willing to will and willing to heal. Because at the heart of our resilience lies our indomitable will. Our will sorry, the slide is really bad, but that's the only image that really spoke to me from Google Gallery. So, our will is our closest experience of ourselves. The will decides what is to be done. It generates the resources necessary for its realization and persistence in the first face of adversity and difficulties. The will is not the same as drive and desires. The will has a directive and regulatory function. It balances and constructively utilizes all the other activities and energies of the human being without repressing them. So how do you recognize will? If it is different from drives, if it is different from desires, and that's not what will is, then how do you recognize will and differentiate it from the rest of your psychological functions? Sometimes, when all is lost, when there's darkness all around, you really feel like you don't have the strength anymore, really. And yet, something rises from the very depth of you. Something from deep from within your soul and takes charge. Suddenly feel your spine straighten up. And you do not know where this last remnant of energy was. What part of you is awakened? That part is your will. Sometimes, in moments of contemplative meditation, You feel a surge of energy run through you. That's your will. And the most often felt experience of will is when you are tackling something difficult, when you're working on figuring out a problem and solution that really challenges you, which means it mentally invigorates you, because will comes into this world through our actions. It manifests itself in this world through our action. There's a very specific kind of power you begin to feel, and that is your psychological experience of will. Each one of us has will, some in generous proportions, and some not willing to exert it. COVID is behind us. COVID is behind us. But adversity and crisis are not. The next one is facing us right on our faces. What is this? Each one of you know this. And this one is going to be bigger, meaner, and worse than COVID. Because there would be no Ebola to have trained us. Funds may or may not help. What is this? The climate crisis. And believe me, take no pleasure standing here and saying that the continent of Africa is going to be the worst hit in the entire world. I can go back to statistics and quote statistics, but that will take us to the masculine. And I want all of us to stay with the feminine for a little longer. Just like the feminine consciousness needs healing, it needs love, your understanding and acceptance. The will needs training. Understanding the aspects of will, understanding qualities of will, and understanding types of will is very, very essential to building your will, because will can be built through training. The will is present in everyday life. The will is present in the mundane. So how do you begin to take your journey from personal will? For instance, each one of you coming here today is an example of personal will. How do you begin to take the journey from personal will to transpersonal will? What would that look like? And your transpersonal will is directly connected to your transpersonal self. The transpersonal is the realm of where your best potential lies. Sometimes hidden, sometimes frozen, sometimes playing hide and seek with you. But it is present in each one of you. So who is going to dare? Who is going to be bold? And who is going to find that courage to take this inward journey and work and build on your personal consciousness? And what is your willingness today to come into a direct relationship with your will? I want to now talk to each one of you. I want to directly appeal to each one of you, not as a collective, but as an individual. And I want to share these stories with you. They're very, very beautiful stories, and they're very personal to me. It's from my personal collection. This gentleman he was a Navy pilot, and he was captured in North Vietnam in 1965, and he became a prisoner of war. and he stayed as a prisoner of war for 7 years. Needless to say, stories of torture so bad that it left his legs, his knees open and crippled. After getting beaten up, he was not sewed back sometimes, and sometimes when he was sewed back, it was without anesthesia, without the best of medical help, aid. When he was released from prisoners of war, he came back home, crippled physically, but psychologically intact. He attributes his ability to endure captivity simply to the teaching of Epictetus, who is the father of resilience. And it's important to note that adversity can hit us, personal or more environmental, more social, at any time. And then war and peace doesn't matter. When it happens to you, it happens to you. It doesn't matter whether the world is at war. You are at war, and someone has waged a war on you. Personal resilience matters. Helen Keller, born deaf, mute, and dumb. She was taught by an English nanny to read and write at an early age. Her nanny's name was Annie Sullivan. Helen Keller grew up to be an author, lecturer, and educator of blind while supporting a lot of progressive causes. And this is what she says. Sometimes it is true. A sense of isolation enfolds me like a cold mist as I sit alone and wait at life's shut gate. Beyond, there is light and music and sweet companionship, but I may not enter. Fate, silent and pitiless, bars the way, but my tongue will not utter the bitter, futile words that rise to my lips, and they fall back in my heart like unshed tears. Silence sits immense upon my soul. And then comes hope with a smile and whispers, there is joy in self-forgetfulness. So I try to make the light in others' eyes my sun, the music in others' ears my symphony, the smile on others' lips my happiness. And the last story is from Beethoven. Beethoven, at the age of 31, found that he was becoming partially deaf. He was heavily depressed and suicidal. At the age of 54, utterly deaf, Beethoven was no longer suicidal and he was not depressed. And at that point, he took this poem called Ode to Joy from Schiller's work, and he composed the Ninth Symphony, which is today the national anthem for European Union. And this, my dear friends, is an audio I would like for all of you to listen to and feel what life someone who was a musician, not at his prime, not when he was already known, popular, but someone in his struggling days as a musician, what it might have felt to that person individually, personally, to have lost his hearing. And yet, he gave the world this. My dear friends, at the audio, if you can. Is the audio not working? We can share it with the participants later. Is that a problem? I say, if it ends, if at all it ends, it will be in Africa. Because the good folks in Africa, the women in Africa, will hold it for the entire mankind for as long as they can, because they have the most beautiful and indomitable will that God Himself has bestowed upon them. Thank you so much.